Welcome to a Superbloom podcast. My guest today needs no introduction, yet she deserves all the introductions. Actress, producer Rachael Leigh Cook is hanging out with us today. You might be like me, you might have seen her on screen back in the day in a little film called The Babysitter's Club. And then in some cult classics like She's All That, Josie and the Pussycats. If you're like me, you've just seen her on screen forever. Like you've just watched her on screen your entire life. That is how I felt. And then I am very lucky to say that years ago, I had the pleasure of meeting Rachael. And I am just so excited that we get to hang out on my podcast today. We're going to be talking about life, work, travel. We're specifically talking about travel because Rachael has a new movie out right now on Netflix, A Tourist Guide to Love. She plays a travel executive who accepts an assignment to go undercover and learn about the tourist industry in Vietnam. Basically my dream job. I love to travel. I talk about traveling a lot on this podcast, also my Cold Brew Conversation podcast that comes out on Mondays. I have traveled alone a lot in my life. I have an entire folder on my computer of just travel itineraries. If I had not chosen the route of an actress, I probably would have found myself as some sort of travel agent because I love to book a travel itinerary. I love to plan every single detail of a trip out, like down to the minute. But I've also had to learn that when you travel that way, sometimes you miss out on really special opportunities. So you have to leave room for little magical moments to happen. And that's exactly what A Tourist Guide to Love is all about. It is such a delightful film. If you haven't already seen it, you're definitely going to want to watch it after this interview. Please enjoy my sit down with Rachael Leigh Cook. There's so much I was excited to talk about, like career and life and, forward thinking of, how we, as the architects of our life, how we can try to anticipate what, we want and create that for ourselves. And then after watching your movie, I'm like, fuck that. I just want to talk about travel and like solo female travel. A Tourist Guide to Love. It just gave me the biggest travel itch ever. And it's such a fantastic movie. It's all the good feels. And I'm so excited to dive into it, but I just want to have you ever been someone who travels by themselves? Because the main character, she works for a travel company. She goes to Vietnam to research this other travel company. I don't want to give too much away. But I do that. I actually go on trips like that, and I travel a lot by myself. Is this something that you've ever done?
Okay, first of all, Candice, thank you so much for watching the movie. That was above and beyond of you. I would have been happy with even just a click. I so appreciate that, especially with how busy you are. Thank you.
Twist my arm and make me watch an amazing rom-com starring you.
Thank you. You're the greatest. Let me see. Do I travel solo? First of all, yeah. What do you mean you travel solo? You mean before your kids probably, or for work?
So I do a lot of the Comic-Cons.
Mm-hmm.
And so those take me overseas to Europe. And if I'm going to be traveling there already, then I usually try to pad a few extra days. I'm also separated now. And so
congratulations.
I know, I've joined the Big D Club, big divorce energy over here. Didn't anticipate. It's a very weird club, as you know.
I do. But I also know that the appropriate response to that news is not, I'm sorry.
I know. Yes. And thank you. And I've learned that. And you don't know until you go through it.
It's so true. It's so true.
It's just, it really is. You get kind of inducted into this club. But so especially last year in being separated and knowing that, my kids would obviously be with their dad, I kind of had these opportunities to travel for work. Mm-hmm. I just leapt. And even when I was younger, pre-kids, I did this a lot. I went on a week-long cooking tour through Italy or through the Amalfi Coast with cookingvacations.com and just ended up on one of those trips where you're just on this bus full of people and everyone's from different places. Everyone has completely different backgrounds and you just make this little mini community with a bunch of strangers, and it's so many magical things happen. And I try to convince everyone to go and just get out there and travel alone at some point in their life. So I'm so happy to have seen it in this wonderful film way, because so many people are so scared to do it. But did you ever travel that way? Because you've been working forever. You've been in the industry forever. Is that something you were ever able to do?
I mean, girl, you get it. Yeah, let me see. I haven't done international cons like you have. I definitely am lucky enough to travel for work sometimes, and I love my weekends when I get to shoot abroad somewhere. But other than that, yeah, there's not been a great deal of kid-free travel. But I've done one bus tour. And I find it so exciting that, like you said, people from all walks of life coming together. And that was sort of the impetus for putting together this movie, is that I knew coming out of COVID that people really had a travel bug. And I also knew that there was also just that thing we've all been missing of just not having connection with new humans. Nobody's talking to strangers, period, these days, let alone in the COVID era. So that's where this all sort of came from, actually.
Do you like to travel? Do you like to talk to strangers?
Yes. Yes, I do. I'm that person who looks at who's next to them in traffic. And I'm like, wonder where they're going. Like, I'm a very nosy person. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to talk to you on a plane if I'm sat next to you. Like, don't worry about it. Like, I will talk to you if you want to talk to me, but don't worry. I'm not going to talk your ear off the whole flight. Like that kind of person.
I always say my favorite place in the world is an airport bar. You can have like the most vulnerable conversations with, you will hear everyone's life story in a matter of 70 minutes at an airport bar. And it is my favorite place in the whole world.
That is so, oh my God, the lucky person who gets to sit next to you and just find out about everything that's been going on with you. You're the perfect person to have this podcast. My goodness.
Lucky. I don't know about lucky.
No, you built it. That's not luck. Good job, Candice.
How long were you in Vietnam making this movie?
We were there 2 months, and I'm used to quicker shoots, sort of fast and furious, like just, get it done as fast as we almost irresponsibly can. And this one it's not that it was luxurious in terms of shooting days, but we had so much travel that we had to build in days to simply get, all of us, the crew, the equipment, cast to the next location. So we were there a solid 2 months. But it was great. Like, my kids came out, my mom, our nanny, it was a great experience. It was hectic as all get out. It was hot, but I'm so proud of what we made, especially considering how, difficult it was at times.
Yeah.
But I do need a vacation. Do you need a vacation? Where was your last vacation? I have so many questions.
My last big vacation, I went to Scotland for a week by myself and road tripped.
I love it. Did you do that train? My friend Christina was there recently and she did that. Oh my God, I want that train so bad.
I know. I would, if I could do it again, I would spend 2 to 3 weeks there. And that's the part with having kids. I can't really do that. Yeah. I planned a trip in which I went fly fishing up in the Highlands.
That is so cool.
And golfing in St. Andrews, and just drank a lot of whiskey, a lot. Very peaty whiskeys. Yes.
You're contributing to the economy is what you're doing.
Just one dram at a time, just really giving back to the Scottish community.
Good for you.
How old are your kids now?
Oh my gosh. When your kid turns a new age, you have to get used to saying it. So my little baby is 8 years old. How dare you, Theodore? And my oldest is 9.5. She'll be 10 this year. So I can't even. Gosh. How about you?
7 and 2.5.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Little 2.5. Don't you trick yourself into thinking that they're grown up. That's still a baby. It's a baby.
I know. And it happens so fast. But speaking of baby, how old were you when you started acting?
You were really good at segues. Let me just point that out because that was lovely. It's like a dance step. I appreciated it.
Pas de bourrée and...
When I started acting, I was probably 15 when I started acting in a way that I consider watchable, probably 18.
Wait, so you were 15 in Babysitter's Club?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
I really literally feel like
15-year-olds then and 15-year-olds now look very different.
Very different, right?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. It's so true. And they were sure to keep us all looking like kids. This was pre-Euphoria times. Right?
Yeah. I would love to have a viewing party of just the Babysitter's Club and Euphoria in one city.
The whiplash, I think, would kill everyone involved. But yeah, how old were you when you started? I don't even know.
Oh, I was older. I was 18.
That
So
was
I was very
sensible.
old in
Bye, Mom and
Hollywood
Dad.
years. Yeah.
Exactly. You're like, I'm a grown up now.
I'm an adult. But did you know like that you kind of won this magical movie lottery at such a young age? I mean, you went from, because I also remember with it The Adventures of Huck and Finn.
Oh my
Because
God, good
I
memory.
had a very committed relationship with my Jonathan Taylor Thomas poster on my wall.
Uh-huh. Well,
And
he's a lovely young man. I'm sure
yes,
he's
I
still
mean,
doing great somewhere. I've heard he's a lawyer now or something smart. Totally
I mean,
figures.
of course he is. Of course he is. I always but did you know, like at that point, were you a younger actor as a kid being like, oh, this is cool, but I'm still in school? Or were you like, did you get the bug
I
and you're
think
like, this is what I'm meant to do?
yeah, well, I think like most kids, I was ready to be done with school as swiftly as possible. So when this presented itself as any kind of an option, I was like, let's stay on this train for as actively as we can. Just seemed like a great deal. To be independent in the workforce, have a cool job. Like, I'm sure a lot of people would have taken that opportunity, but it was certainly it had a lot of high school-esque amounts of rejection, as the business still can serve up, and it's complicated. Socially, it can be lonely being just sort of on your own, starting out in the industry. It's hard to keep friends around. Everyone's so transient. And so, yeah, did I know I had won some kind of a lottery? I knew I was lucky, that's for sure. I mean, I managed to somehow book my first audition, which was the Babysitters Club. It was my first studio movie audition.
Wow.
So that's not a good example of if you if you think you know how the business works. That's a total anomaly. So I'm just lucky that happened. But back in those days, and I'm now old enough to make statements like back in those days, it was just sort of the momentum of getting one thing could really get you another. Like you could successfully sort of trick people into hiring you for something else because they're like, oh, that's the girl who booked Tom and Huck or whatever. Like it just, that momentum carried me forward, I think, for quite a long time. And then She's All That made good money. So that afforded me some opportunity in commercial things. But really, I just wanted to be like one of the cool kids making indie movies. But that was always kind of never going to yield, I think. I don't know how to put this. It just wasn't for me, and in terms of a frequency way. So I did that for years, but now that I've returned to this kind of content, I think I feel more at home.
Yeah. Like, do you look back and thinking like, well, first of all, it's so funny because when you say 15, I'm like, oh my gosh, you were so young. But I did the same thing. I left school when I was 16 because I was originally in the music business. And I got a record deal, and my mom came out with me to LA, just like two suitcases each.
Yeah.
And I was like, halfway through my year, I was like, I'm out. Bye. This was not for me. I'm on to other things. And I was very committed to the career path very early on, even though it took me in a different direction.
You totally get it. Oh my God. And you can sing?
Well, I mean, they're very rusty pipes these days.
They are pipes nonetheless. That is incredible. I'm learning all kinds of things over here.
But when it's funny to hear you say that you had all this wonderful commercial success, and then you had this idea of like, no, but I want to be like this indie kind of gritty actor, because I feel like that is such a very common thing. Totally. It's so typical. I remember because I had that same thing too for years throughout Vampire. I was just by the time I was ready to commit to working on other things, I just was like, no, it has to be this level of, this kind of a big show, or it would have to be this kind of a gritty role, or this person that I'd work with. And it was so much of it was based off of how I thought other people would see me, as opposed to how I saw myself and what I actually even wanted and what I actually enjoyed. And what I enjoyed was going to work because I like working, working with really nice, cool people that are in good moods most of the time, and making delightful, films and projects that make people feel really good or give them a hug to their heart. That's the stuff that I enjoy.
Completely.
And it's funny how it's and it's also, I think, just being in your maybe 20s in the industry too, what were some of the indie projects that you were like, ooh, I'm going to sink my teeth into this. This is my Spirit Award winner here and straight to Oscar.
Oh my God. Okay. I never thought I was in any danger of winning an Oscar. Let me be super clear about that. But first of all, thank you for putting that all so eloquently. Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. I remember I loved, and to this day, I love the script for this movie I did called Stateside with Jonathan Tucker. And my gosh, it's a really good movie. My friend to this day, Danny Francese's in it, and I play a schizophrenic woman who's a singer. Again, second time I played a fake singer, because I can't sing like you, Candice. You probably should have played this part. But she's a schizophrenic and a sort of former actress who's, losing touch with reality in varying degrees, who falls in love with a boy who's on the outs with his family because he keeps getting in trouble and he's supposed to behave. He's from this well-to-do family, and they send him off to the Marines, and sort of against all odds, they find each other, and it's their sort of unlikely love story. And the writing is very sort of abstract and poetic. The guy, Rivera Anselmo, who wrote it, is truly a character, and I love his writing in that piece. But yeah, it did not take off the way that I think I felt at the time, at least. I thought it deserved to. And it did sort of make me realize that people are more comfortable with seeing me do a certain kind of thing that probably just matches my natural frequency better. I don't take issue with that. And I certainly would take any opportunity like that came around again. I don't regret it, but I do understand why it probably made $3 at the box office.
Yeah. But then also that's why I think, it's so easy, I think, for a lot of people to look at actors. I mean, I'll do the same thing. I'll watch someone and be like, why are they making that choice in their career? They should be doing this. They could be doing that. And in reality, then when you're actually just part of the industry, you realize, oh, there's certain choices that you make because some might have the optics of looking really cool, but you're not able to put a roof over your head or feed your family. And then other things help you feed your family, and other people are going to be like, that's not that cool, but actually it's incredibly cool because you get to do what you love to do and provide and be a person in the world that pays taxes and does all the things.
Exactly. You completely get it. And like you said, so much of what I love about our job is just the doing of the work. I love the people. I feel such a kinship with these members of our silly actor tribe. And I just feel so lucky to be in it. I've never been a person to go on set and be like, oh, this shit, I love it.
Is anyone else in your family in the business?
No. My mom's very artistic. She's a weaver and she spins and dyes natural fibers and is incredible in that way. I could talk about her for hours. She's an amazing artist. And my dad, although he dabbled in stand-up comedy when I was young and now just mostly specializes in dad jokes, he was a social worker in the public school system. So not really. What about your folks? Were they creatives?
No, my dad's my mom was an environmental engineer, and then before being a stay-at-home mom, and then my dad is a cardiovascular surgeon. And just to give you perspective on how little involved he is with the arts, he texted me the other day and said, "Hey, honey, do you know a Martin Scorsese?" And I said, I not personally, but by but by craft and fame. And he goes, "Oh, cool. I just operated on his brother. Never heard of him. But I guess his brother was in some of his movies. Is he still alive and making films?" And I just was like, yes, Dad. He's a very, yes.
God, that is incredible.
And I was just like, here's a man, can save a person's life, knows every lyric to a Jimmy Buffett song, yet is just like, do you know a Martin Scorsese? So no, I do not come from a background of artists. I'm a lone wolf.
Refreshing, though.
But it's funny when you get bit by this bug and you don't understand it, and then you just love it so much. And it sounds like I'm very similar to the way that you're describing your love for just not even the final product, but the joy of making it and the community that comes with that, which is just my favorite part. I mean, before I even started acting, I was in LA at, 16, 17, and all the people that I met
that were my age, that were my friends, just happened to be actors on very big television shows. So if I wanted to hang out with them, I'd go hang out on their sets. I did schooling with one of them, with their on-set schooling. And I just fell in love with being on sets. I was like, oh, this is cool. Free snacks, always awesome. Always a plus.
Mm-hmm.
But just all these people coming together to make like each special moment, and this synchronicity of that, I just found it so beautiful, and like this kind of mishmash family that I was like, oh, I want to be a part of a mishmash family.
Exactly. Especially TV gives you that feeling of family too. I can't say that it does feel a little bit more like the circus is blown into town, like when you go do movies, you know what I mean? It does feel more temporary. And that's what I do miss about doing a series. I've only done 3 seasons of something. I've not touched what you've done. So I can't even imagine how it must have felt leaving your last like long-term TV family. Are you in touch with a lot of people?
Yeah, I just saw everyone. I saw Daniel in Covington the other weekend.
Yes.
Like 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So there was a whole bunch of us there. So we see each other all the time, actually, which is because of these Comic-Cons, which is really nice. But in day to day, not as much. But it is. It's like this family. It's like family that you get together for for Thanksgiving every year. You know, in this very weird circumstances of Comic-Con in Germany or like in Covington, Georgia. But it's like this language that you all learn how to speak with one another. That I just remember going to dinners, and my partner and like anyone else who would bring in a significant other would come to these work dinners and be like, oh, here we go. Because we'd all just have this work language that unless you're there, it's kind of hard to follow or jump in casually.
No, it's so true. It's like you had to be there or you'll never know.
Yeah,
it's just,
I know.
It's so special though. You'll always have that. And that's what I love about our business too, is that, it could literally be 15, 20 years if hypothetically, if you ran into someone again and you would still have that shorthand. And that's such a hard thing to explain. I mean, I think people who aren't in entertainment do understand on some level. It's like if you went to summer camp with someone, or something like that, and you kind of kept in touch with the people you went to college with, or, I don't think it's a totally unique phenomenon to our profession, but it's a major plus.
I think we have another person who connects us in a way, in like a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon way. You mentioning Josie and the Pussycats and like that you didn't sing in that. Kay Hanley, I think might have done So I toured as a backup singer for a hot minute.
Amazing.
For Miley Cyrus back in the day.
I love this.
Kay was the other backup singer. Kay from Letters to Cleo. So it was her and I who, if you watch like the Best of Both Worlds Miley tour movie, it's her and I that were on that tour together for a year.
Oh my God, I love how tiny this world is, Candice. That is so weird. I love that.
And she's so cool. I love like Letters to Cleo, the coolest. And also like if anyone, obviously she did your vocals. They were also featured in 10 Things I Hate About You. They're like the band in the movie. Like she just was so cool and fun. And like but I mean, you did a great job of pretending you were singing, because I didn't know until she told me when we were on tour, and I was like, what?
It does kind of feel like blasphemy that they even I will never be anything but grateful that I got that part. But there's no way with all of the double and triple threats out there that they got me, who can like barely dance and hit a mark, to like play that part. Unbelievable.
You brought the tude. You brought the Josie tude that everyone needed.
Girl, I tried.
And I just also love, I loved that movie when it came out. I know that it obviously is now become this cult hit that everyone appreciates.
So wild.
And finally freaking gets. Is that when you were making it, was it very fun? Do you remember it being very fun?
We thought everyone was going to love it. Not I don't think anybody thought we're too young to give a shit about the business of it all. We weren't like, oh, I hope this is a good, profitable opening weekend. None of us just sort of thought that way. At least I didn't. And so we just had a great time making it, and then sort of realized that it not making money had a very direct effect on our lives and careers. But, at the time, we did just have a blast making it. And I'm glad that we made the exact movie that we did, because it found an audience, even if it took a while. And yeah, I love that movie. I love its total irreverence. I love what it has to say. I love that it makes a statement. And I love that I got to be reunited with Missy Pyle from that movie on Tourist Guide.
I know.
So I'm sure you caught that.
That was going to be my next segue.
Magical.
Coming in, stealing my segues. But before,
I'll be quiet.
Before I bring in that segue, and also just how true that movie kind of is, that is now, it's like everything is like marketed with this underlying advertising. Like there were songs that started coming out more and more and more during that time where people would, make sure that they're talking about what alcohol they're drinking, what clothes they're wearing. Like it definitely, like the statement that was made has now appeared in like the way we ingest our entertainment, and advertising is not just from like TV and film, but also from like what we listen to and all the content that we're absorbing. So I think it's just very funny how much it's like come to fruition.
Oh, absolutely. It's not even a conspiracy anymore. It's beyond direct. Like someone told me the other day that they write songs in a sort of backward way now. They're like, okay, what's the dance? And then we like write the song so it can be a TikTok dance. And like, I don't even know. I can't imagine that. That's gross to me that's how music is being created right now, let alone to sell products.
I know.
I don't know.
But because it's tough. And even going back to where, like you mentioning that you, at the time you're young, you don't think that like a movie doing well or not doing well and making money for a studio would have any effect on your career. And then you feel that it did. Like what, for anyone that doesn't understand the industry, who was like, what do you mean it had an effect on your career? I'm listening to you right now. You're doing great. Like I understand what you're saying, but like, what did you experience from that? What was the fallout for a while?
Well, yeah, if you're associated with something that isn't a big box office success, you do sort of have to take the hit for that. You know what I mean? When you're headlining it, nobody's like, that music wasn't great, because it was. And somebody's got to be to blame for this. That like no one would blame, I don't know, all of Universal, I guess. Although maybe some people in the marketing department should be spoken to. It was just a tough sell, that movie. So why it didn't hit exactly, I don't know. I think it was marketed towards just young people who didn't quite get the sort of abstract nature of some of the product placement, things like that. Or not abstract, but sort of pointed nature of that. And then I think, quote unquote, grown-ups thought that it was for kids. And so I think people just fell somewhere in the middle. But in terms of the fallout, as you say, you're just sort of shouldered with that sort of shadow of, I don't want to say failure, just not resounding success. So it makes people wary about throwing money behind your projects. You're still considered like a name, so you can get smaller movies, but they're not going to be as good of material, or if they are, they're not going to pay anything. It's, it's a trade-off one way or another.
Did you internalize any of that at the time?
Definitely not. I was not
amazing.
Informed. I was not informed enough to sort of take it personally or really worry until the sort of period in which I really should have been doing some worrying had sort of passed. Because I always conditioned myself to know that there were going to be ups and downs, right? So I was just like, yeah, we're in a pendulum swing. This is a phase, and I kept busy. It was not, as high a budget, et cetera, but I hadn't worked on a bunch of huge movies before that anyway. So I never thought I was going to be on some trajectory where things just built and built and built. I never thought that was going to be my track. And I've always had to fight, and I've always been okay with that.
Yeah, but not everyone has that. I mean, that's taken me a while to really make friends with the idea of like long game, because I am a type A planner. Like I need to know when something's going to happen.
Yeah.
I just spent an hour in therapy being like, but I don't know what's going to happen. And here's one scenario in which things can happen. Here's a B scenario. Here's a C scenario. And I'm just planning for every single scenario so then I can be uber prepared for like if anything does well and anything doesn't do well. And he just like, as I'm talking, he wrote like a phrase on a Post-it and slowly walked over and just like put it on the couch next to me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what is this? What is this, Latin? You're going to solve my problem solving with Latin? And basically the translation was make haste slowly. And I've been like sitting with that of just like being prepared. You can do all the things, but you also have to just be in the ride of it. And it really is that, like, and it just experience it. And so the fact that you had that wherewithal, when I know so many people I've talked to, and many actors especially, are just like, no, this is my moment. If it doesn't happen now, it'll never happen. It'll never happen. And so you should commend yourself to have that kind of that knowing sense within you at a young age that, okay, this is the long game, and there will be waves, there will be pendulum swings, because not everyone has that.
I feel like please don't give me too much credit over here, Candice. I'm not ultra peaceful with it. I just understand that it's going to happen. You know what I mean? It's like when you drive yourself to the doctor and you know that you're going to get a shot. You're like, that's going to happen. Here we go. So, and in a way, it's like, maybe I didn't manifest enough, like, everything going positive all the time, kind of whatever, but I'm just too practical for that. So, but I understand exactly what the phenomenon that you're talking about just wanting to plan, because it makes you feel proactive in a time when, so many things feel like they're out of our control. My brain is happiest when it's making plans for the future, when it can see the future a little bit. And I totally relate with what you're saying. So yeah, if I can remember to make haste slowly one of these times, I'm going to text you and be like, I think I'm doing it. I tried. Because it's hard. Because when you can get into go mode, it just does feel good. It can feel like a good day. And sometimes it's just like, it's like you're going down a hallway and there's all these doors and you're like, no, these doors are opening. Oh God, I'm just stuck in this hallway.
Yep. And the predictability, like the safety of predictability is something that I'm really trying to reckon with. And also, COVID, I think, was a big part of shaking that up for me, that you couldn't predict. I couldn't predict that. I'm sure someone's listening being like, oh, I predicted whatever. But, and then secondly, divorce. That definitely I've had to reframe my idea, like, because I keep calling it, like, it's the Christmas card. It's like everything that you'd planned out is now different.
Yeah.
And that the safety of that predictability is now gone. And also the fact that, like, when you get thrust into these situations, so oftentimes, if you actually are just quiet and tune in and be present, like, that's when so many the yummy stuff of life happens, which also I think was so beautifully highlighted in your film, A Tourist Guide to Love, because
there she goes with the segues, you guys.
With Missy
so
Pyle,
good.
who you worked with, and Josie and the Pussycats, because there's this magical moment where your character says, I want experience. I want off the beaten path. And, like, that's the stuff. And you have to let go of the control of predictability in order to experience those things. So is there a kind of a pivotal moment within your life, or even the past decade or couple years, where you had that kind of your own aha moment, or your own kind of craving for off the beaten path, where you got to, like, really just experience the unpredictable, like the yummy unpredictability of life?
I would really like to. And I think the version of that I'm looking for, that you're probably looking for too, that I don't think many of us give ourselves permission to have and to take, is I've never pulled the plug on my availability to others, people who could need things from me professionally, obviously our kids are going to need whatever they're going to need all the time. But in terms of the unpredictability of it all, the only way to get there is to make yourself available to it. And I think that so much of the burnout is very real in our business, and people don't sort of appreciate or accept it. They just all want to there's this busyness Olympics that happens, especially in LA. And by the way, kudos to you for getting out of here. And so what I would like in terms of, that saying yes to life experience moment is fully saying no to the deadlines that come with work, just for once in my life, and just shutting off and being like, you know what? I am just open to life experience for a month, 2 months. Like, the company of this pointy little face is closed, and I'm just going to see what life outside of the business has to offer, because I've literally never allowed myself that. You just feel like you have to be, Mrs. Available all the time. And I think that would do me a lot of good mentally. And, I love this business, you know, and I'm a lifer. I'll be around, but yeah, I think I do need that breather a little bit. Do you take those?
Yeah, but then also that doesn't know, like what I've had to wrestle with is I have taken those. I've said no to a lot of things because I knew that I needed either to be, I had to prioritize something else in my life. And then I've also said no because like even a perfect, like a more like light example is just when my time on the Vampire Diaries, we would work, we'd film 9 months out of the year and we'd have around, you know, or 9.5, and we'd have around 2-ish months of hiatus. And so I'd always get like a couple auditions rolling in and I'd tape them or go in and then I'd be like, and I'm out. Because I also had a whole bunch of these Comic-Cons that would take me over to Europe.
Yeah.
So I would get buyouts for all my flights. I'd fly coach. I'd fly all my friends like over. We'd get Airbnb and I would just travel for weeks. Like I'd go pop over here with my friends. I'd like, there was one summer where I just like emailed friends being like, who knows someone in France? Like who knows someone here? And I just kept bopping around to all these places and had the most magical like experiences. Again, this was before kids, but that's why I had this itch last year. I was like, I have to go. I needed an off the beaten path moment. And I knew I needed to be by myself. And Scotland, driving up to the Highlands in a car in which you were on the wrong side of the car, on the wrong side of the road for hours. It's a real soul-searching experience. You know, it really makes you think about a lot of life choices. All those roundabouts just bring you, like, think around about all your choices in life that have brought you to those roundabouts. But it just was so nice because like I just kind of put myself in a lot of situations where I didn't know what was going to happen. It was just with a bunch of strangers. Like I went fly fishing. And so I'm emailing with this guy, poor Wes, I emailed him probably 100 emails. And finally he just was like, I will be there at 7, just dress warm. And he took one look at me and was like, none of this you can wear in the cold Scotland fly fishing. He's like, are you comfortable if like I bring you back to like my house where my wife is and you can borrow her fly fishing gear? Because they all teach as a family.
Amazing.
And so there I am, like in a car with Wes at 7 a.m, like in their kitchen, and his wife's making me coffee and like dressing me in her clothes. And we go out and you see these like Scottish longhorns. And like, I am not an expert fly fisher woman. I have done it a handful of times, but the lessons that are learned, just like, you know, the big thing I took away is I was just trying too hard. He's like, you're just forcing it. You're trying to like hook the fish and you're going to break the line. He's like, close your eyes. You have to close your eyes. He's like, you have to feel the fish. You have to listen to the fish. You guys are in a communication. Like, stop trying to force everything to happen. You have to listen. And it's like those little moments that you just need. And you can pay for a therapist to tell you that. You can have a cocktail with your friend and she can tell you that. And sometimes you just need to hang out with Wes in his wife's clothes on a lake in Scotland trying to catch a rainbow trout. And it finally clicks. And I feel like it's especially in America, it's such an American thing to not give yourself permission to just go and be. And were you able to have that in Vietnam at all? Like, you know, obviously I know you're filming a lot of these transformative experiences, which are still magical, but they're not the same.
Yeah, it did feel like work mode. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I remember every moment of that shoot in a way. I remember every location. I remember the people very well. It's one of those sort of, some productions are just kind of stickier in your brain. But in terms of it being a poetic, again, off the beaten path kind of moment, like you and Wes and his wife's clothes and the communication with the fish, it was not that. It was, I had to give myself permission to say, you know what, there's a lot of stillness and natural beauty here that I can appreciate from the chaos of my mind in an appreciative, but, you know, probably a little bit outside it way. And yeah, like, I think maybe that's how I see my retirement years, is that time for quiet. I do need to learn to chill, though. I'm probably not a great hang right now.
Well, I say don't wait till retirement years. You could go take like a week or two. And also,
we can go fly fishing.
We can go fly fishing. That's what it's very easy.
It doesn't sound easy.
I know, it's great. Like, you know, you do what you do. And also you realize like I did a lot of these activities because I was so intimidated and also kind of under this assumption, even though I've grown up, like I would go golfing with my parents. I also fly fish with my parents. But I always thought, like, no, like, because I'm not like an expert at it, I can't do that. Like I can't go golfing in Scotland. And originally a friend of mine, she was going to come with me and couldn't come. And she's the one that wanted to go golfing. And I was like, you don't golf. I've known you for 18 years. You've never mentioned golfing. And she was like, it's the birthplace of golf in Scotland. Why would I not golf? I'm going to pay them my money to get a tee time. They have to let me. And I was like, you're right.
They do.
You're
and
right.
I'm sure that green looks terrible, but I'm sure she had a great time.
And she didn't get to go, but so I kept the tea time.
Good.
And it's okay to like go and do things that you're not good at, and that it's not, that is a new experience.
That's so true.
And just to shake it up, and also you find out really unique things about yourself, especially like I think later in life when you know yourself so well, it's really fun to be kind of finding these little like secret chapters within the book of you, you know?
I totally do. And also, we ask our kids to try so many things, and we have to be a good example also that we have to try, and it's okay. They can see us fail. I don't know how to ski. I took my kids skiing this past winter a couple times. They love it. They've got the fever. They saw mom wipe out a couple times. But it's, you know what? It's okay. But we all had a blast. It was really worth it, you know?
Yeah, no, that is, I love skiing. I haven't been in a couple of years, but I'm itching for it. I also just want to say, even earlier you were mentioning that you found yourself like you feel that people want to see you in a certain role, and a lot of that essentially in like this romantic comedy or romantic drama, like romance, feel good things. And I am just very jealous because I'm stuck in Murderville. Like everything with me is always
Quit
murder,
being
murder,
so
murder.
Good at murder, Candice.
So, I'm like, well done for ending up in like jolly, beautiful romance while I'm over here just murdering people.
Hoping people want me to do, because that's what I want to do personally. And I can't believe you're not a Happy Town resident. That's crazy to me because you're such an inherently like positive and lovely person. Like,
well, thank you. I mean, we'll see if this changes the tide. But what are your favorite like romantic comedies, romance? Like, is there a book? Is there something that just...
I was obsessed with that. I love like the John Cusack and Meg Ryan, of course, are synonymous with so many of these roles, but like the sort of overly cerebral person in a rom-com. I love like Say Anything. I love Grosse Pointe Blank. That kind of thing. You know what I mean? People who just keep getting in their own way and then get out of their own way. And then they manage to like be a better person for someone else. And I love it. I don't know what to say. What are some of your favorites?
I'm like a diehard Megan Ryan. I call her Megan. And no, French Kiss is my favorite, even though I know it's not like her widely critically acclaimed film. Obviously, everyone's more of a When Harry Met Sally kind of like person, but I love French Kiss. You cannot stream it anywhere. You have to buy the DVD, and I recently bought a DVD player and the DVD, so I can watch it now whenever I want.
Good for you.
And then, classic Nancy Meyers, Everything. I think is always great. But it is very interesting nowadays that I think it's really hard to make like a romantic comedy. And even like, I'm not by any means like, the way that people date nowadays is just very interesting to me because it's all online. It's all like texting. And I just like, it makes me so sad watching like all these amazing romantic comedy films where it's just like, yes, get back to people going out in the world and like saying hello to strangers and getting to know each other and not just like focusing on their phones in the safe place and swiping for people that are miles away as opposed to people who are right next to you.
Are you talking to strangers? I want to know. I want to know what's going on. I was going to say, you're on the apps.
No, I am not. No, I am on no apps at this moment. I am on no apps at this moment, and my only strangers that I talk to are at airport bars, as I have said, because that's my favorite place to talk to strangers. But even just talking to other people,
you're out chatting up strangers at airport bars. This makes me very happy.
Favorite. I got delayed for 8 hours in Memphis and had like the best time getting to talk to like this whole crew of people that we all became best friends, in that period of time.
That's beautiful.
But do you find like, even like, I know that you produced this film, you pitched this film, like, do you find it interesting now trying to navigate being a part of love stories on screen, or even the creation of love stories on screen, when the reality in this like technology driven, dating app world is really, it's not as easy and magical as like someone standing with the boombox. You can't stand with an iPod. You can't stand with your phone being like, hold on, let me turn it up a little bit more. Can you listen?
Definitely can. I'm on somebody's ring somewhere, but no, just kidding. Funny enough, my first Netflix movie that I pitched and produced, and if people like it or not, is actually about a very cynical man who sues a dating website called Love Guaranteed that promises that if you go on 1,000 dates that you will meet the love of your life. And so he's like closing in on that. And then he hires me. Of course, I'm his lawyer, to sue the company for false advertising. So do I understand that app dating is ridiculous and difficult? Yes. And I think that that's why it deserved its own movie to address all of that. But I like the apps for dating because the people are further removed from your actual life. I find it very scary to go out with somebody who's a setup, because it's like, they're going to have crossover. You know what I mean? If they're not feeling it, if you're not, and you see them later and you're like, oh, hey, Greg, I guess that didn't work out, but here you are again, So in that sense, I like it because it's you're bubble hopping a little bit further. It's not so direct. But how do I feel about making movies about these perfect love stories when reality is harsh, which I think is much more the question you were asking? I think that it's important to keep the dream alive. And when you are really in love, it does feel like a movie. It does. That is how exciting it is. And that's the part of it that is no exaggeration. So that's where I don't think I'm representing anything in a false way at all. How people get to that point in a movie is a little bit ridiculous. But when you have all those feelings, it's bigger than a movie,
Yeah. Well, I think everyone is going to have all those feelings when they watch A Tourist Guide to Love.
Look at you bringing it back around. You are so good at this. Oh, my goodness.
Well, before I let you go, I have 5 questions that I like to end asking my guest every episode. Just word association sentence. Just say a sentence or a word that comes to mind. So
here we
low
go.
Key. I know. Get ready. Okay. Something that you like.
Oh my gosh. Pumpkin spice everything. That was the most basic
Even
answer.
Now, in the springtime, impending summer?
100%. I'm a year-round pumpkin spicer, if that was on the table for me.
I love that. Okay. Something that you know.
Something that I know that I don't know much.
Something that you hate.
Coconut. Sorry, Coconut Council. Not into it. Sorry, Samoa's not feeling it.
Something that you love that's not your kids, family, but something that you love.
Something that I love. I love running into people I haven't seen in a long time. It just feels like I'm where I'm meant to be,
Yeah. I love when that happens. Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. And then a quirky little fact about you.
Quirky little fact about me. I can wiggle my ears.
Really?
Yes.
Now you have to.
Because that's the number one thing you should probably do on a podcast. People at home will love it.
It's riveting. I'll do the play-by-play. So Rachael has tucked her hair behind her ear.
Okay, here.
She is preparing. Oh, she is moving it with very little jaw movement. All ear. Well done. All ear. No jaw.
And I have very big ears, so it's probably that probably handicaps it in my favor a little bit.
Well done. Well done to you. Well done to your beautiful ears.
I'm so sorry to your viewers. That was trash. Should have had a much better answer.
That's perfect. Just like your love of pumpkin spice all year round, we love you all year round.
I love
thank you
all year round. All your flowers in
Congratulations.
your attic. I want to hear more about your move to Nashville. I have so many questions. And please be in touch, Candice.
I will.
This has been a Superbloom podcast, hosted by me, Candice King, produced by Melissa D. Montz and Diamond Imprint Productions, and advertisement partnerships with ACAST.